It's a pleasure this afternoon to introduce you to our speaker, Karen Russo, class of '96. Karen is an ABC News digital journalist now based in New York. Until last fall, she was ABC's digital reporter based in New Delhi, India. In that role, she contributed on and off-air reporting to all ABC News broadcasts, ABC News Radio, ABC News 1, the network's affiliate news service, and also regularly filed for ABC News digital platforms, including abcnews.com, ABC News Now, ABC News webcasts. For 3 years, and we were just talking about this, Karen was based in India, where she covered that region. She spent nearly 8 months in Afghanistan, embedding with U.S. troops and covering features and breaking news. She has reported throughout South Asia and Southeast Asia on breaking news and feature stories, including the Mumbai attacks in 2008. In 2008, she reported and produced for the ABC News Bureau in Baghdad. Prior to her assignment in India, Karen was a field producer for Nightline, and she also produced reports for the ABC News special, A Call to Action, Saving Our Children, for which she received the Robert F. Kennedy Award. She's been twice nominated for an Emmy. And in 2006, Karen received the Rosalind Carter Mental Health Care Fellowship to report on mental health care in Ethiopia. Russo joined ABC News in 2003 as an associate producer at Primetime. And before joining ABC, she was a print journalist. Her experience is extensive for someone her age. She received her BA from Smith and her MS from the Graduate School of Journalism at Columbia. Please join me in welcoming Karen Russo.
Hi. Thanks. I get very nervous speaking, so if you want to ask questions, please feel free to do so, because I respond well. But I brought 2 visual aids. I brought 2 stories, just because sometimes it's easier to talk about a subject as opposed to just talking about myself. As a journalist, I find that these days it's all about self-promotion, but I've always been much more comfortable behind the camera or asking the questions, and to talk about myself and put myself as the story is always a little awkward. But that said, please follow me on Twitter, because I have very few followers. When I first was I learned about this assignment in India because I had lunch with the bureau chief, the foreign bureau chief for ABC News, and he didn't actually offer me the job. It was at a lunch where he said to someone else, hey, I've got a new budget and we're thinking of sending these people overseas. And I looked at him and I think I almost said, you're an asshole, because I really, really wanted the job, and I couldn't believe that he was telling someone else about something that was so important to me. I've wanted to be a foreign correspondent since I was probably 16 and read Hemingway in high school, and I just thought that that would be like the most incredible job I could ever imagine in my life. And I never was sure if I would be assigned a spot somewhere abroad. And then as I learned more and more about the news business and the closing of bureaus all around the world, really. I mean, ABC used to have bureaus in Rome and London, and you'd hear these incredible stories about correspondents having Mercedes-Benzes and maids, and they would have cooks, and it's not like that anymore. And so the opportunities were very, very few. And I remember in 2003, I went to the same man who I had the lunch with, and I said, please, could I work in the Baghdad bureau? I'd really like to cover the war. And he said, well, have you covered wars before? And I looked at him and I thought, well, which war would I have covered? And so he said no, and put me on the list. And every couple of years, they would either ask me, do you want to go? And my current bosses wouldn't let me, or I would say, can I please go? And they'd say there was no room. But finally, in 2007, he said, okay, I have a budget. And these are the positions. They're going to be called digital reporters. No one had really heard about this title before. We didn't know what it was. But essentially, they gave me a plane ticket, a camera, a laptop, and a MIDI satellite system, which is called a BGAN. And that was it. And I showed up at the airport. I brought my sister with me because I didn't have a place to live. I'd never been to India. And so I thought maybe she could help me find an apartment. And I remember checking in, and I got to fly business class. I was very excited. And I had 7 huge suitcases and, you know, my camera and laptop. And the woman said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Mumbai, India." And she said, "Oh, are you going for business?" And I said, "No, I'm moving there." And she said, "You couldn't find anywhere better?" So slightly crestfallen, I boarded the plane for my 16-hour flight and landed, and, you know, immediately connected with a real estate agent who, you know, took me under her wing and said, you know, "I'll help you find a house." And she eventually became someone that I called my Indian mom. And she and her family welcomed me and pointed me in the right direction, or if I needed a contact. You know, it was amazing. And I met Priya before, and she's of Indian descent, grew up in India, and she understands. But in India, if you become friends with a family or an Indian person, it's almost like you're a part of their family. And you know, she looked after me in a way that I don't think in America, I don't think we understand what a challenge it is for people to move here and be separated from their family. But I was telling someone else that now when I meet taxi drivers, you know, who are from Bangladesh, and I think, oh my gosh, you know, you're so far away from your family, whereas before this experience, I never even considered what people were going through. But anyhow, this family sort of took me in and showed me everything. And I wanted to show you the two stories I'm going to show. The first one is about driving a Tata Nano car, and the Tata Nano, just two basic facts. One, it's considered the cheapest car in the world. It costs $2,500. And two, the inspiration for this car was the owner of Tata Company, which is this very large automobile company in India. The owner, Ratan Tata, saw a family of 5 people on a motor scooter riding around an Indian village in the rain. And that's a lot of how transportation, that's the transportation. It's not unusual at all to see a husband and a wife with a baby in the mother's arms, and she's riding side saddle, a child in front of the father, and another child in between the two. And so this is supposed to be the next step in between scooter and big car. Okay.
Called the world's cheapest car, and if size is any guide, that's not hard to believe. It went on sale in India today, where it's expected to be that nation's Model T, putting millions of average citizens behind the wheel for the first time. So what's it like to drive? ABC's Karen Russo took one for a spin.
It's only about as wide as a twin bed and as long as a rickshaw. But this little car is a very big deal. So big that the Tata Nano is expected to revolutionize India. The major selling point for the world's cheapest car is, of course, price. The basic version costs only about $2,000, but that low cost means a lot of things are missing.
There's no radio system, no CD player, there is no air conditioning unit, no power windows, and no airbag.
Definitely simple, but it still looked like it would run.
Does the seat move up?
Okay, so just so we're clear, I don't normally drive on the right side of the road.
Sounds pretty good. I don't know if there's a speed limit here on a test drive.
The 2-cylinder aluminum engine makes for a zippy ride that feels like a cross between my '96 Honda Civic and a lawnmower.
And now I'm going for the luxury model. Already I can see that the seat is a little bit fancier. One of the first things you'll notice is that there's power windows in this car. There's also, thank God, air conditioning. It's very hot today.
It can comfortably seat 4, but in a country where a family of 5 can ride on a scooter, it'll likely fit more.
Horns are everywhere in India. It's just a way of saying hello, or I'm near you, or I'm behind you, I'm next to you, I'm within a few feet, I'm within a few inches. It's like a sonar system here.
But it's not the horn or even the size of the car that makes the Nano so special. It's the affordability. And that will change the lives of Indians across this country. Karen Russo, ABC News, Pune.
Okay, that stopped. All right, so I wanted to just show that story because, you know, India's...
Turning data into useful answers. We're 78,000 people.
India's being sort of revolutionized.
Looking out for 70 million Americans.
There's a lot of... It was very frustrating in some ways covering it because despite the fact that India is, an incredibly fast-moving economy, there's 1.1 to 1.2 billion people, it's the largest democracy in the world, there's still a lot of people that just want to do medical mysteries, and I was asked to cover my fair share of stories about girls with 8 limbs or babies with 2 faces, and it felt oftentimes like I was expected to cover what National Geographic would have done in 1945, and I think that there's a lot of cliches, and I think that, as media, it's our responsibility to try to dig a little bit deeper and find stories that maybe impact the world a little bit more. So even though this is a story about a car, this is a story actually about a country that is changing and revolutionizing, and I think that it's really important to dig a little bit deeper. This was not the biggest, dig I've ever done in my life. There are stories that were far more impactful on my life. People in tea plantations who were being poisoned by their bosses. I did a story about an entire village that had every single person in the village had at least one, if not several family members who were killed because the water that was supposed to be protected and provided for them was tainted. It had cholera in it, and it had other, it was disease-ridden, and it was like the first time that the Ministry of Health was bringing charges against tea plantation owners who in the far eastern part of India are incredibly powerful. But it is very difficult when you work for a television network to get attention and a spotlight on events that people here, that us in the United States that we don't even think about. It was a real challenge. I lived in Mumbai for 1 year, and then I lived in Delhi for 2. And once I moved to Delhi, I had an opportunity to go to Afghanistan, which is really where I had wanted to go for probably, I think, since I saw the National Geographic cover that Steve McCurry shot with the famous Afghan woman who was in Pakistan in a refugee camp. So finally, in 2009, I was able to make my first trip into Afghanistan, and that's this next story I'm going to show. Oh, except I think it went away. Did it? Do you know where the other one went? This one? Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. It's about 4:15 in the morning in Afghanistan's southern Kandahar province. A clean touchdown.
Let's go.
Then quickly 9 American agents are out of the helicopter and across the dusty field.
All right, everybody take a knee, take a knee.
With them are 20 Afghan police.
We're putting out the broadcast. Just hold what you got.
The team leader, Frank Tarantino, turns to his interpreter.
All right, loudspeaker, this is a police action. Put your weapons down. Move across, let's go. In your elements, let's go. Tell all those people right there to move out of there.
They're hoping to seize evidence in the private compound of a police commander who they've been tipped off is corrupt. Despite what it looks like, this is not a U.S. military operation.
All right, hey, tuck up against the wall. Let's go.
This is the DEA, the American Drug Enforcement Administration.
All right, get in.
But when they get inside, the men have already fled, leaving their weeping women and children behind.
Tell them relax. No worries.
The tea they were drinking is still warm.
Let's get up on the roof. Let's look into this next place, and let's clear it, and then we'll come back and do SSC. Roger. Chest rig, loaded, and there's a bunch of mags in here. Bring all weapons to this location over here.
Although the men fled, the mission was by no means a failure. The agents seized weapons and evidence, and some of the weapons,
You put that down. That's not police issue.
like a rocket-propelled grenade, are too unstable to bring onto the helicopter. So they take care of it on location.
30 seconds. Good job.
For
9 years, the DEA has quietly toiled away here stopping drug traffickers.
We're checking something out right now. Just give us about 10 or 15 minutes.
But now they're at the center of the Obama administration's plan to take back Afghanistan.
Make sure he knows to look for the purple and hunger.
This elite group, nicknamed the Fast Team, has taken its drug-fighting expertise here to Afghanistan. Because this is where 90% of the world's heroin is produced.
What is that, Tom?
DEA guys tell me it's poppy seeds. Doesn't look like my muffins back home.
Reeks like hash down here.
Yeah, you smell it.
Oh, that's hash.
Money from that drug trade is believed to generate $125 million a year.
Oh, yeah.
And all this right here. I mean, here's their sifter.
Yep.
And fund the Taliban and the growing insurgencies in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and possibly Al-Qaeda.
Busted.
Tarantino leads his men on 4-month deployments. Their mission is to collect evidence and build legal cases against some of the world's most corrupt drug dealers.
All right.
Often targeting smaller dealers to build larger cases.
Handcuffs. Here's what I need. I need for you to talk to the women. For placing their husband under arrest for narcotics. Illegal possession of narcotics.
This arrested man just told his distraught wife that he is only being taken away for questioning. But Afghan laws are strict, and he's likely going to jail for the next 15 years.
You know, it's never just about seizing and destroying the drugs. It's really more about taking down, dismantling the disruption of organizations. This operation will start to generate intelligence and information that'll assist for follow-on operations. The first thing to do is they're going to unload on full auto.
Much of the Fast Team's work is focused in southern Afghanistan. One of the most dangerous places on Earth. So they train like soldiers.
Fire!
More than half of the Fast Team has military backgrounds. Special Agent Alan Plotz interviews an informant here in Kandahar.
Just some information regarding the stalls in the Mullen Bazaar. So,
according to the Mullen Bazaar, that I already told you guys that it's the drug dealing market. There's a lot of dope in there.
we appreciate that you came in here, risking your life too.
So I should bring.
Tarantino is currently on his 6th deployment in Afghanistan,
I'll put that in my pouch.
but is often sent on other assignments around the globe.
Yeah, kids are awake. What's up, buddy?
He tries to talk to his wife and 3 children once a week.
How many breakfasts have you had already?
Operations begin early.
And somebody's got to clear that.
Yeah.
Me and the target. So
It helps with the element of surprise and to avoid the 120-degree summer heat. Like all missions, this one has been carefully coordinated. While it's never just about the drugs,
Let's go! Straight out!
intelligence for this operation suggests there is a large amount on their target. But when the team searches the compound,
Ask them where the lab is.
they find nothing.
All be advised that the hash lab from the target location might be to the left.
It smells like hash, but whatever drugs were here have clearly been moved. So the team, a bit frustrated,
Go ahead and collapse back down to the main compound.
returns to the compound, when suddenly an American voice cries out to Tarantino.
45-pound bags of down there, dude. Is it hash? I don't know what it is. It's all prepackaged, too. It's huge. Where is it? Right here. Okay. It was hidden. Oh, you are kidding me.
100 bags. Maybe 100.
Awesome. We're good. All right, good. All right, that's a big seizure there, my friends. We found a pretty significant size of hash at our location. I want a sample of every single different bag. Okay. And then we'll just have to burn it and blow it. That's 3 tons. That's 3 tons of hash.
All hidden in special packaging.
Look, it's in ragu sauce.
12, 13, 14, 15.
We're not starting the fires, we're putting them out, Karen. Hurry up, Al, hurry up. Hold on, 30, now.
The 9 guys on my team are certainly not going to stop the narcotics flow, but we can continue to make cases and conduct operations, and it has a ripple down effect.
For Nightline, this is Karen Russo in Kandahar, Afghanistan.
I don't know if that's going to start again, so sorry. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so I was the camera person, I was the reporter, I was the producer, and I was completely by myself. It was supposed to be 10 days in Kandahar, and actually at the time the Marines were doing a surge into Helmand province, which is near Kandahar. They're both in southern Afghanistan. Both are very, very deadly fighting hotspots. So as a result of the Marine action, all the missions here with the DEA were put off. So I ended up spending a month with this team, and they work very closely with special forces. So it was like me on a base with like all of these special forces people, and yeah, it was sort of an unusual arrangement. That doesn't normally happen. Usually embeds are shorter, or certainly not, 30 days with just me without any support. But anyhow, yeah, sure. Some of them are tried in the United States. Some of them, I believe, are tried in Afghanistan, but I don't know if they really have the legal system in place to do that. For example, I know that the law against that man, he was supposed to go to prison for 15 years for this. Do I really know if he's going to be in prison for 15 years? No. Do the DEA guys know? Probably not. This man was obviously not a huge target, but it's all about building cases. So it's possible that they just got information from him and then used it to build a bigger case against someone else. I mean, where we were, that's close to a place called Spin Boldak, which is very close to the Afghan-Pakistan border. So what they believe is that the drugs just go back and forth, or they'll package the drugs in Pakistan, then sell them to Europe, and then the money will just go back into funding the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or whichever. Yes.
Is it like for you as a woman? I mean, obviously, if you're taking your own footage, you're following right in these guys' footsteps, and in a very male-dominated culture where the women are all wearing burqas and veils and so forth. I mean, do you cover your hair? Do you dress in something that like sort of fits in with the behavior you're following around?
That's a great question, and it depends. When I was with the military in another extremely conservative part of Afghanistan, in a known Taliban village, I was pulled aside by one of the members of the military, and they said that the locals had been complaining about me because my hair had been pulled back and I wear the Kevlar helmet, so my head was covered, but they could see my face. So they actually asked me to wrap my entire face with a scarf. But generally speaking, because I'm the camera person and I have like a 100-pound backpack on and everything else, I'll wear a lot, like I wear LL Bean and Patagonia, sort of active wear, boots and jackets, but I'm not as concerned about wearing, for example, a kurta or a longer Indian dress. It's just really hard to move physically, and if I'm jumping out of a helicopter, I don't want to get my clothing caught. I could fall. Yeah, but it's a very valid question. And when I'm just interviewing women, for example, usually when you get inside the home, the women will remove their veils or their scarves, and then we can sort of be exposed around each other. So you sort of have to gauge the situation.
Does that ever open up opportunities for you, the fact that you're a woman, you can talk to women or get entree into families domestically?
Absolutely. Whether it's in India or whether it's in Afghanistan, I think women are at an advantage in many ways. The problem is, of course, a lot of the men don't respect you, so they don't even want you in the meeting. But if I'm the camera person and they see that usually I'm with soldiers and there's usually men there, then they sort of give me the okay, then I have the foray. But some of the more profound personal experience I had was when I was engaged with women and able to talk to them about their situations. And certainly if I'd been a man, I wouldn't have been allowed into any of those areas of their homes. Yeah. Any questions? I have no idea. I'm currently a producer at ABC, or digital journalist. I used to work at Nightline, and now I'm back for several months anyway with Nightline. I would love to continue to do what I did. I mean, I'm not the greatest person on camera. I'm not the best cameraman. I'm not the greatest producer, but altogether, I think that I'm pretty good at everything, and I really like being kind of a jack of all trades. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I was a research fellow in India for several years, and I was also a graduate student there for several years after leaving Smith. I wanted to know, this was back in the early to mid-90s, so I actually left India when you graduated. But I wanted to know, did you do any follow-up on the effect of the nano car? Just because, there have been a lot of huge clashes between, regarding class as well as accessibility, especially because in Mumbai now they're building one giant bridge and a few other bridges to deal with the congestion and the traffic.
Yeah, the interesting thing is I don't know if anyone knows anything about the Tata Nano aside from what you just saw, but there was a lot of controversy about the fact that it was going to damage the environment. Here you were going from people having two-wheel scooters to suddenly four-wheel vehicles, and as it is, India's roads are incredibly congested. They're usually full of potholes, etc. I found
about it, and the thing is also, you see the struggle in class, because the thing is a lot of people who are lower middle class, even middle class are, they're forced to take trains and buses, which are incredibly overcrowded to the extent of being dangerous. I think New York is crowded. Mumbai has about double the population.
Yeah, just to put that into context, 20,000 people die per 5 years. So about 4,000 to 5,000 people are killed every year in Mumbai just from riding the trains. Imagine going to work and not knowing if you're going to come home because you were either pushed off the train, run over by the train, or the train got into an accident. I mean, it's incredibly deadly. So yes, public transportation is not always the greatest source. I think that the Nano, there was a lot of hype about it, but they didn't actually sell as significantly as they thought they were going to. So when I left, which was last fall, they were not all over the road the way people had predicted, but that doesn't mean it's not going to change, in the next 5 years. Sure, anyone? You.
I work as a journalist, and now I use social media for some of my job, which is in marketing. So I have a couple related kind of technical questions. So if you could address a little bit, first of all, what it's like as a digital journalist, having to do all these functions that historically used to be separate people. And secondly, you addressed this, you referred to it very briefly at the start of your presentation, the whole self-promotion deal. A lot of us are probably familiar with the Doonesbury sequence with the very vague national journalist, kind of a parody of Dan Rather, and how he promoted Ronald Headley, sort of a parody of every Dan Rather type big airhead, talking head on TV, and how he's ceaselessly promoting himself on Twitter and Facebook and all sorts of other things. So if you have time, maybe you can get into a little self-promotion angle as it's required in the 21st century.
Yeah, I think I'd be a lot more successful if I promoted myself better. I mean, I mean, I just think that it's a real challenge. I think that you're expected to, I don't know if you want to be on the air or you want to be the reporter. It's really about your face, your name, and a branding of yourself, whereas I came up through print and it was always supposed to be about the story or who I interviewed or the person I profiled. And now, I mean, we have a joke. There's one correspondent at ABC who I will not name, but there's something called B-roll, and that's sort of the, you know, like the background video, or kind of everything I shoot is B-roll or natural sound. But, you know, if you're talking about a man and he's, you know, works in a company, you would usually see a shot of him sitting at his computer typing, or you'd see him walking down the hallway. That's the B-roll. Well, now we talk about correspondents who have something called me roll, and it's all about like how many times can you put yourself in the shot. And I think someone was quoted just like 2 days ago as saying that in 35 shots the correspondent was in 17 of them, and that's the way you're supposed to be now. And I think it's very frustrating and uncomfortable for people, but I also think some people really love it. So you know, if you're vain, you're like, you are in the right business. But if technically, what could you ask that question again?
Yeah. The things you have to know and do. I mean, for example, in my line of work, I now have to learn about Twitter and Facebook and taking video with clip videos and uploading it to YouTube and posting it on our company's blog and so forth. I know if I were starting over as a newspaper reporter, I'd have to be taking not only my own pictures, at least we wouldn't have to be messing around in the darkroom anymore, but I'd have to learn how to upload them and process them, and then I'd have to be learning about taking videos and recording voiceovers and being coordinating all of that. And so it seems like there must be a lot more expectations and you can cross-train on a lot more things than even a decade ago when there would have been separate photographers, camera people, sound writers on your talent.
Yeah, no, I did all those things, and then on top of it, I was criticized because like my eye makeup was too dark or my hair looked flat. So I would take pictures of myself in the field with curlers, like, and send them back to the talent people and be like, I promise you, like, I really, really tried to make my hair look good, but I'm sorry, like, because it's 100% humidity and it's the rainy season, like. That I'm supposed to be, yes, we're supposed to be perfect. It's in everything. Yeah, no, well, it depends. I mean, I'm a digital reporter. I am not a correspondent, and there's a real distinction between those two. And I gravitate towards the more difficult, you know, physical assignments. I mean, for me, it was like, but when I moved to India, I thought two things were going to happen to me. One, I was going to get a foodborne illness, and I would lose 25 pounds. I'd be skinny and hot, and I was so excited. And the other thing, I thought I was going to meet this really hunky BBC reporter or cameraman or something, and like get married, we're going to travel the world. And like neither of those things happened. I gained about 10 pounds. I was as pale as could be. But when I got to Afghanistan and it was literally 120 degrees, and I had my 150-pound backpack, and I was carrying it all around the place, I would have a still camera around my neck. I'd have my video camera on my hand and a notepad usually in both pockets of my pants, pens everywhere. I got the nickname Sweats from this team because they would see me and I just had like sweat marks all over the place. But that's just, you know, I like that. I mean, you'll notice in the DEA piece, I only put myself in one shot. It was 5 seconds. That was it. That's an 8-minute piece. I mean, there's no me roll there. But I'm also not on the air that much, so there may be a reason. Yeah, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. Yeah, you should be able to do all that and more. You know, and yeah, I know it's funny. I never did Twitter. I didn't do it until like maybe two years ago. I signed up for the account, but I didn't actually like do a tweet. I don't remember the first one I did. But 2 months ago, I started becoming obsessed with Twitter, and now I think it's I feel like I'm ahead of the game. Like I love knowing news before it's out.
What's your Twitter name?
KK Russo, but I don't actually. I mean, I'll do like a lot of retweets. Andy Borowitz, I think, is like the funniest person ever. Everyone should follow him. He's hilarious. And he can, because he's a comedian and no one takes him seriously, he can actually write things, you know, about news and not get in trouble. Like, I'm always concerned that my bosses are reading what I'm writing and, you know, I'll be pulled aside and brought to human resources, so I don't do it. But I could retweet what Andy Borowitz says and be kind of cheeky. I think you had a question. Sorry. Yeah, I was. I'd actually lived in that hotel for about 5 weeks before I found my apartment, and then moved in. Became friends with my Indian realtor. But so I knew a lot of the staff, and I knew the whole layout of the hotel, which was sort of strange. I was in Paris on vacation. That was Thanksgiving week, and I had flown to meet a friend. And I sat down to dinner. I'd landed, whatever, took a nap, went to dinner, and then I got a phone call that said, do you know what's happening in Bombay? So I got back there probably about a day and a half later. So when the Indian commandos were on the roof, tossing grenades in to supposedly save the Chabad house people, I was watching all of that and filing live radio reports and typing stories on my BlackBerry. Yeah, so it was, and then I walked down the street because I knew the back way to get to the hotel, and I thought it was so weird because no one was near the hotel, so no journalists. And I kept walking, and I thought, oh, I can get into the door. So I was about to walk across the street into the door to the hotel when all of a sudden I heard a bunch of people behind me screaming, "Get down!" And I looked, and there were all these Indian military and police people behind me. I'd walked past the line of caution because there was no line of caution. It was like complete chaos. So I everyone had their guns pointed at me, and about an hour later, 2 journalists had received shrapnel from shooting. I think the terrorists had shot out the windows or something. So it was actually far more dangerous than you would have expected. It'd be like walking, across to the library, but the whole library is under attack. But sort of the streets were quiet, and it was very confusing. Anyhow, all right. Yeah.
You talked about the time when there were bureau chiefs in places with cooks and nannies and limo drivers, and then the next stage was you doing it all yourself. What's next?
Twitter. I mean, not going to cover anything and just sitting in your room and filing reports. I mean, I'm slightly obsessed with Yemen. I've been sort of obsessed with this country for a few years now, and so I follow some people about Yemen. I think Yemen for Change was maybe the one that I'm talking about. And so I follow them on Twitter, and someone was saying, government, soldiers shooting protesters now. And I thought, is this happening in real time? How long ago did they send this note? And then I thought, well, who is this person tweeting this? So I sent them a message and said, where are you? Who are you? What are you really seeing? Are you on the ground? And they said, oh no, I'm from Yemen. I live in Washington, D.C. and I am watching the reports on Reuters. You have to be very careful about who you consider to be a reporter, who is a real journalist. Because you don't have to really have any credibility. You can just sort of make it up. I mean, the president of Yemen, someone created a fake Twitter account. He's the official Twitter voice of the president of Yemen, and he'll say the most ridiculous things. And I wrote to the person again and said, "Who are you?" And they just gave me the quote, "I'm the official Twitter voice." But he'll say things like, "I need more ammo because I think Al Qaeda's coming today." It's like you realize that these are jokesters out there too. So I don't know. It's strange. It's a strange time. It's a real challenge, and then how do the established journalists continue? Because there's always someone younger, there's always someone cuter, or whatever it is, faster on Twitter. I don't know. It's a very strange industry, and we're expected to make a lot of money too. So that makes it challenging. Okay. Yeah.
Any personalities among news reporters? Are there any reporters or journalists or correspondents that you particularly emulate or you think?
I don't think I emulate him, but I really admire John Donvan. He works for ABC News, and he's been a Nightline correspondent for many, many years. I just think he's brilliant. He's a great writer. He doesn't make the story about him. he really comes to mind as far as writers go, or, I mean, I love Dexter Filkins. You know, he wrote The Forever War. If you want to read anything about Iraq or Afghanistan of recent years, it's incredible. And now he's at the New Yorker, but he's at the New York Times forever. But I think it's, I mean, there are some amazing journalists out there, but there's so many channels and there's so many, you know, cable outlets. Oh, by the way, my dad informed me that Ollie North is doing my story, the DEA story. I think it's airing tonight. So for the record, I had it first. But anyhow, yeah. There was someone else I was going to say. Oh, sure.
So, first of all, I find Bill very depressing. Somebody who's always been a really serious news follower, and you know, we've lost that. I don't want to sound, you know, like old and my parents, like, you know, the world's so different. But I do think objectively it's different in a much worse way, and it scares me. You know, that you know, you won't be able to depend on, you know, people who really are about the news and not about themselves and the packaging and marketing. So that's just a comment. But the second thing I was going to
But what is it that depresses you exactly?
that there aren't, there's not a structure that will support economically. You know, the New York Times is, and the Nightlines, and the you know, nightly news, sort of the McNeil Lair reporting, you know, there's public radio. NPR is, you know, the sort of beacon shining out there. But otherwise, news is, you know, in the 24-hour news cycle, lots of fluff. There's it's a lot of marketing and branding, but there's not an economic structure that continue to support serious news, you know, as it is right now. Even the New York Times is barely making it. It's just all, you know, for somebody who really likes serious news, it's a little scary. That was just a commentary. The question on that actually was journalism schools are doing, you know, this, but knowing that things are changing so much in the media, how are they conforming to that? What are they doing to, you know, they're not creating the next, you know, traditional journalist anymore, right? So how are they teaching journalism?
I'm not, I don't want to answer incorrectly. I really don't know. I mean, I attended Columbia, but I graduated in 2002. So at the time, I was learning how to shoot and edit at that point, and I know that they've improved the, you know, the laboratories where you can do it. But I'm not sure what they're doing as far as training goes. I mean, I think it's you know, it's a legitimate question. What do you do when you graduate? You know, what are you looking to emulate? Because it's very specialized. That's sort of what we were talking about before. But I'm not sure, unfortunately. I don't know. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Is that it? Okay. Oh, yeah. No, I just have a contract and I work. So, so I could do a lot of stories or I could do none, but I'm still showing up every day, getting a paycheck until they fire me.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
This is one of those moments when I feel like I want to be like someone when I grow up, and she's 20 years younger than I am. So thank you very much, Karen. It was great to hear about your past and your present, and we'll all be looking forward to what's in the future. So thank you. And thank you all for being here. I hope this was a good start to a wonderful weekend at Smith. Please enjoy yourselves, and we'll look forward to seeing you this evening and then in the parade tomorrow. So thanks a lot.